All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Billboard chart guy here, and back for another episode of BBCG and Friends. And I'm happy to have KBC with me. You might know him on Twitter as KirksBeatCallahan. KBC, how are you?
I'm doing great, Bill. Thanks for having me on here.
Uh, my pleasure. Thanks for doing this, and as always, thanks to Kirk and the Minifan Network for all the support. So I reached out to you a couple of weeks ago because I was scrolling on Twitter and noticed that you were in France getting ready to see a Springsteen show. Tell me about. Have you seen him in Europe before? Was this a first time? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, never saw him in Europe. Certainly not at the level you and Kirk and some of the spring nuts out there. I lost track. I'm probably a less than 15 Bruce shows kind of guy in my life. Various
Mhm.
stories for that, but the older I got in life, the more I could appreciate Bruce, and kind of thought the time was running out, and so I've packed in the shows lately. So I'd never been to a European show. Um, I actually kind of combined this with a little trip in Paris and took my wife and my 11-year-old son, who have never been to a Bruce show. They're kind of sick of hearing about Bruce, but I said you got to give him a chance. Part of Bruce's big part of Bruce is the live experience there. So
Right.
we combined it into flew into Paris, stayed there for a few days, wonderful, and then took a train through the countryside, 3.5 hours over to Marseille to pop into the show there. Fantastic.
And how did you end up in the pit? Did you buy pit tickets, or was there some sort of
Yeah.
drawing or raffle?
All right, so I looked at this kind of a once in a lifetime that I could line up my son and my wife and myself in Europe. So I had a kind of backup plans. I originally bought tickets kind of like midfield, and getting European tickets is a little bit more challenging. I didn't get instant feedback from the seller. They said that they would deliver the tickets, 2 hours before the show
Hmm.
goes on, and I started to get a little nervous. So I purchased, oddly enough, the pit tickets were very reasonable. So I actually purchased seats and pit tickets. Pit tickets came to me instantly, so I know I had those. And I wasn't so sure if my wife and son could handle 3 hours in the pit there. Happy to say it worked out great though. So
Well, that's
um,
great.
yeah, there are plenty available here for the pit.
Um, so I've obviously seen a lot of videos from him performing in Europe. The crowd seem very enthusiastic, very engaged with the concert. How would you compare the crowd in France to, say, a crowd in at Foxborough or
Yeah,
Boston
great
Red?
comparison. I've seen them stadiums, I'm some small venues. The crowd was really into it, and I'd peeked at the set list in Manchester, and my take on it was a little bit of a tougher set list for the casual Bruce fan, um, but the audience was into it. There were, I don't know how many people. Somebody said there were 60,000 people in the stadium, so it was really rocking.
Yeah.
Some subtitles, I guess, on some of the more political statements he was making. And I had a mix of people. I had people that didn't speak English next to me. I had people from New Jersey. So it was quite a mix there.
Um, Sounds very good. And to your point about the set list, this is clearly not doing this for the fans, right? This is
Yeah.
he's got a message to give, to deliver, whether you like it or not. He's going with it because this set list has stayed pretty static through the first few weeks of the European tour. I think he goes till July 3rd.
I believe
Over
so. Yeah.
there. Yeah, but
Yeah,
but yet,
he had an angry tone, not that he was going to kill you, but he was on a mission.
yeah,
And I take the politics with a grain of salt, whether you agree with his politics or not. Like, kind of like Kirk says, it's a few minutes. He's entitled to his opinion as well. A little bit surprising for my son. He had never kind of heard that angle there. Oddly enough, because I think this did play well in Europe, but I heard quite a few boos as well, and that is unusual. I haven't heard many boos at a Bruce. They were
you
certainly
should.
overwhelmed by people cheering, but in some of the political stuff, I did hear some boos.
Well,
I
that's
thought that was kind of
interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
Now you can confirm they weren't Bruce's; they were Boo's.
They were not Bruce's, they were not.
Okay.
But I looked around. You could see by the body language there, but certainly they were out. They were outweighed by the cheers.
Yeah, but I mean, this set list, Land of Hope and Dreams, Death to My Hometown, Rainmaker, Darkness.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's got a message here, and like I said, it's been pretty static and consistent. I
yeah.
noticed actually he played today in Germany, and he added for the first time he played Two Hearts uh,
Oh,
tour premiere, and also in the encore he added Seven Nights to Rock, which is one of the
oh, that's a great
covers.
one.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
caught that in Foxborough a few years ago. There.
yeah.
Um,
So a couple of changes every night, but it's been pretty static.
I
Um,
thought the lineup was great. As a semi-serious Bruce fan, I thought that the selections were great. They flowed. His voice was really strong, and I'm not sure. I didn't really hear any reviews in Manchester and some of the UK stuff, but I thought that his voice was stronger now than it was in the last couple of years.
mhm.
It was right on.
Where did you see him his last go around in the States?
I caught two shows in Foxborough and a
Okay.
really great show at Mohegan Sun. Opened up with Lucky Town and some interesting stuff. That's a smaller venue. That's like a 10,000 seat venue
Yeah.
there. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah, that was in 2014. He did the last two nights of that tour and ended up at Mohegan, and we went to
oh,
both
okay,
of those nights.
yeah,
And yeah, I think he opened with maybe Roll of the Dice and into
yeah,
Lucky Town. Yeah, so
yeah.
it's he seems to like that venue. I'm sure they're paying him very well.
I'm sure they
Um,
are. He seems to do
I'm sure
that in the gambling venues. He'll throw in a roulette or a Lucky
that
Town there. So,
right or leave
yeah,
Viva Las Vegas, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So how have you been a fan of Bruce's since you're a kid? When did you start?
Yeah. Um, I think it was on one of your. I think you had the Walkman comment, but my
Yes.
introduction to Bruce was late '70s at a cookout. My uncle had this strange contraption with a cord on it and these things you put on your ears, and he pressed that play button for me, and a Born to Run cassette was in there, and I'd never heard fidelity like that, and I just walked around for 2 hours just listening to
That's
that
funny.
to that tape. And so it was Bruce, but it was also the newness of the Walkman there.
Right.
Can't say I was like super struck as a Bruce fan there, but he was so big. I'm 56, so I
Right.
grew up with classic rock, blaring on the radio in the car. Um, and so I always appreciated music. And like I said, the older I got, Bruce was actually a tougher ticket in the New England area when I was young, and I couldn't spend $200 on a ticket, so I didn't see a lot of shows. And I can't say I appreciated Bruce's lyrics and the meaningness, the meaningfulness of his songs until I got older there. But that's how I get into it. And then the other interesting, my first kiss involved a Bruce song at a camp, at a church camp, big
Okay.
bonfire playing. They load us in the wagon, and we're driving down to the lake. And as we get to the lake, you could just hear the song "Born to Run" just explode off of these speakers. Jumping out, big bonfire. Met a girl, danced, had my first kiss. So, pretty meaningful for me from that perspective there.
Look at you getting it done. Look at
yeah,
you. Good for you.
yeah,
When was your first? And we'll get off Bruce and talk about a few other things. But
yeah.
when was your first Bruce show? What tour? What
I actually
year?
saw him in 1985 at the Providence Civic Center.
Okay, great.
I think that it was like a winter show.
Yeah.
Um, Still, even back then, my white whale. I've never caught Jungle Land live there of
Oh
the shows
wow.
I've been. I just had bad luck for it. I've never been. I should have made the trip down to the Meadowlands because good chance you get it down there. But even back then, I didn't get it. Um, but picture mid '80s, Bruce, people with crazy '80s clothing on, and yeah, it was a good time. Again, probably didn't appreciate it like I should have at the time. I went to a lot of concerts in the '80s. A lot of things were coming through Providence there,
Hmm.
anywhere from Loverboy to AC/DC to Van Halen to Springsteen. So they kind of all blur into one back then.
Yeah. So my first show was probably right around that same time. I saw him in January of '85 at the Carrier Dome in Syracuse.
Oh yeah, that'd be one of the shows close to mine there. Yeah.
Yeah, let me.
What
I'm
was it
gonna.
like for you? Was that flip a switch in you, or?
It certainly turned me on to him tremendously. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know what? Look at this: January 23rd, '85, and 24th, '85. He was in Providence, and
Yeah.
then the 26th and 27th was in Syracuse. So yeah,
Yeah.
the thing I remember about that show in particular was he played "Trapped," which I had never heard that song before.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Jimmy Cliff song,
Jimmy
and
Cliff song. Yeah.
yeah, and his version is still unbelievable.
Oh yeah. It's great.
That's the standout song for me. And so we were at the second night in Syracuse, and I think I mentioned this on Kirk's show once. He flew from there to the recording of "We Are the World."
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it all tied together. But yeah,
People
so
forget how big Bruce was. I mean, us fans know it, but he was big. He was a big force back then.
yeah, 84, 85. I mean, between Bruce and Michael Jackson and the
Yeah.
music artists were just, there were so many of them that were so big. Van Halen and Prince
Yeah.
and on and on and on. So that was your first show. And who else, what was your first concert if it wasn't Bruce?
First concert, believe it or not, was dictated by a girlfriend. I went to U2, and
Okay.
the Indigo Girls opened up. This was also at the Provex Center. Can't say I'm not a U2 fan. Never really got them, but that was my first. That was my first show there. And I
So,
have the attitude of any live show is a good show.
so was that before, what year was that?
That, I mean, it could have been 84, could have been 85. It was all in that same time frame,
Mhm.
possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there was we had Brian Adams come through. Trying to think of things around. There was a lot of them that kind of right around that time there.
He was huge in that stretch. I remember I saw Brian Adams open for Journey in '83 at Saratoga SPAC,
Oh, okay.
Saratoga Performing
Yep.
Arts Center. And yeah, he was the opening act, and his first album had just been released, Cuts Like a Knife.
Yep. Yep.
And I could have left after Brian Adams because he was so good. And I wasn't the hugest fan, but my girlfriend at the time loved Journey. So
That's what it was.
you
Absolutely.
know.
Yeah.
Um, so I'd be remiss. Today is the 11th of June, and we just got the news today of the passing of Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys at 82. Which was coming off the heels of Sly Stone 2 days earlier. Also, he was 82. Were you a fan of the Beach? Are you a fan of the
They
Beach
were
Boys?
no, they were a little. That was kind of my parents' time.
Right.
So I remember having the album in the house, but I'm certainly can appreciate the influence they had, on the music scene there. And it's another one off the list. I was just saying to my wife, it's ending. The era of the rock stars. You could people would argue is Beach Boys rock, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Is that ending? There's only so many of them left, and I don't know what fills that void as we go forward there. So yeah, sorry to hear that news.
Yeah, that in my mind, and I always try to create lists and whatever. And in my mind, the Beach Boys are a top 5 American band.
Right.
That's I think they belong there. And I would say Brian Wilson as an artist and a songwriter is the American Paul McCartney.
Right.
I really feel
Right.
that way. Just the creative, the way he recorded and the way he, developed and created music was unparalleled for sure.
Yeah.
I actually, when I heard the news, I immediately put on his song from 1988, "Love and Mercy." I don't know if you're familiar with that
Yeah.
song.
It doesn't not off the top of my head. No.
It was a solo album from '88 and one of my favorites of his songs. And Sly Stone, I don't know if you saw there was a documentary that came out a few months ago about Sly Stone on one of the streaming networks, but unbelievable talent, creative, obviously rough, rough patch with drugs and
Yeah, yeah,
mental health issues, but an
yeah.
amazing, amazing talent who clearly influenced, whether Prince for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever
Well,
seen either of those? Have you seen Brian Wilson or
I have never seen
Sly?
either.
Yeah,
Nah, never seen either,
yeah,
unfortunately. Um, yeah, it's you're right. We're coming into an era, I mean, and I have a buddy who we talk music all the time. He goes, oh, there's only, two Beatles left, and there's
yeah,
Roger and Pete, and
yeah.
the Mick and Keith, and
Right.
we start rattling, and Stevie Wonder. You start rattling off the names
Yeah,
and the impact that all Stills, Nash and Young, and it just
yeah,
all these guys are like in their late 70s, early 80s, and it's
yeah,
unfortunately we're coming to an end of an era. And you're right, like who's picking that up?
yeah.
For guys like us, I think the train has passed us by for sure, and I'm sure there are many artists, younger artists out there that are popular, but they just don't. It's just different. I don't know how to
It's different. The
describe.
album format is different than it was. The concert. You got, certainly at Taylor Swift. She's going to do it for a long time there. But I wonder if at that point we start following tribute bands. To try to get our fix there. I don't know. We'll
Right,
see when that comes there. But
the B Street Band and Tramps
yeah,
Like Us are
yeah.
the two for Bruce tribute bands for sure.
Try to see him when you can. Try and grab
Absolutely.
everyone I can there. So.
Do you have any summer concert plans?
I like to go to. I probably have eaten a Justin hot dog in the past because I do go to Great Woods or Xfinity or whatever you call it now. I'm seeing Michael McDonald with the Doobie Brothers. He's been touring with them last couple of summers, and me and my
Yes.
wife just love Michael McDonald's voice. And it still holds up. I mean, he's just as smooth as it gets. We do flip on some yacht rock, so we'll catch that. But we're kind of disappointed there wasn't some more bands coming through, um, unfortunately. There, so
Did you did you guys see that Yacht Rock documentary?
I thought it was great. Yeah,
Oh, it
it
was
was.
great.
I
Yeah.
thought it was fantastic. There, I know it's polarizing. One of my other great bands, Steely Dan and Donald Fagen. He's very anti yacht rock,
Oh, he
unfortunately.
made
There,
that known at the end of
yeah.
that documentary. Yeah, for
Even though he
sure.
basically birthed every yacht rock musician, or certainly had an influence on it there. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's funny that 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 genre has really stuck, right? Or the name of that has stuck.
Yeah,
I know that Toto and Christopher Cross, and Men at Work are going out this summer,
yeah.
which
We're on
would be a
vacation
fun.
for the Toto show, unfortunately. Else we would have been there. I think Kirk
Yeah,
mentioned he might go to that.
yeah, yeah.
And
So, as a longtime Bruce fan, he's going to be 76
yeah,
in September. What what would be your hope as uh, thinking a couple of years down the road? Do you want to see him kind of shift back and do a small sort of acoustic tour again,
yeah.
similar to what he did on Broadway, or maybe even Devils and Dust or Ghost of Tom Joad, or do you
Sure.
just want this E Street Band just to go out until they go out,
Yeah, I
so
got to
to
admit,
speak?
I'm selfish. I really like the E Street experience. Just the full. I appreciate horns and everything, and just it's all part of the experience for me. But I believe that's selfish, and I think as he ages, and the E Street ages, that it probably is more manageable for him to do some smaller shows. I'll take anything I can get. To be honest with you, Bill. There,
Yeah,
I really thought he'd add some U.S. dates.
so did I.
Getting a little late in the year to do that, and like I said, I've never seen him at the Meadowlands or kind of in the heart of it, and I was hoping that show would pop up there, but I guess not. What do you think? I mean, 76. He looks. I mean, he physically looks great.
He's
Sounded great. does
Yeah.
he do another tour?
Yeah, I think he will. My hope is, and I've been saying this for a few years. I wish he would have, even 10 or 15 years ago, kind of taken like the Grateful Dead model of touring, where when Jerry was around, they would go out on a spring tour, and it was 15 shows, and then they take a few months off, and then they do 15 shows in the summer, and then they do a fall run. But giving themselves enough time to rest and do other things that they wanted. But when he goes out, I mean, we're going to be out there for a year and a half, and it's like he's 28, not 75.
Yeah,
And I wish he'd pull back, because I think not only would the band benefit by that sort of broken up touring schedule, but I think the fans would too, and it would make each time around a little more meaningful and special. But that's
yeah,
just me. I hope I would love to see that sort of schedule kind of come into play,
yeah. Right,
where he's out more often but doing less shows,
right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
agree, agree,
yeah,
agree, agree.
yeah.
What's your favorite Bruce era? I don't mean to, be
Oh
the
no,
interviewer here,
please.
but
I love it.
um,
But it really depends on the day.
yeah, it's mood
um,
shifting. Yeah,
it's mood shifting. I love Darkness, the River, Nebraska. Uh,
yeah,
that run, I adore Tunnel of Love. I love that album. I'm very fond of Lucky Town, not so much Human Touch, but I
yeah. We
love the
have that in
Lucky Town
common.
album.
I
Yeah,
think you might have. I've commented on it. I think it's an underrated album. I know they're released at the same time. It might have gotten lost, but fantastic album. Even though it's on
yeah.
an E Street album there.
And my favorite, album of the 21st century, E Street album, is Magic. I love Magic
Yeah, for
and
some reason
West.
it clicked with me, but I know a lot of fans like that.
Yeah, I prefer it much more to the Rising.
Okay,
Um,
right,
and then Western Stars is just, I think it's underrated.
yeah,
It's a great listen. But
right,
but
right.
gun to my head, put me back in 1978 with Darkness on that tour, and I'm sure you've heard some bootlegs of
Oh
of,
yeah, I
of
mean him in 78, 77, 78. That era. That for me it's similar. I take
yeah.
anywhere from 75 to 78
Give
in,
me
in that range.
give me a live version of Prove It All Night from Passaic, New Jersey
Oh
in
yeah, yeah,
1978, and I'm the
yeah,
happiest clam for sure.
yeah, yeah. You look back in some of those shows and say, oh, have you ever had the opportunity to go to something like that? But that's okay. I'm happy for what I had, not for what I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, the reunion tour was amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been a blessing and if you think about it, this reunion tour, or this reunion era, is longer than the original run now.
Right, right.
They
Yeah,
in '99 they
yeah,
started again, and it's 26 years, and they went, what, 73 to 88, with
yeah,
the
yeah.
with the original version of the E Street Band. So
Right, right.
yeah, so yes, we're very lucky, we're very fortunate, and as you said, grateful for what we've been able to listen to and see over the last couple decades. So listen, thank you so much for doing this. This was a great conversation. I now have a new Bruce buddy, so that's always a good thing.
I need one of those because I don't have a
Yeah.
lot of those.
Well, good.
He
And
can be a polarizing figure for some folks there, but I just like to enjoy the music. So thank you for
uh,
having me on, Bill. I appreciate what you do for the KMS world there. Your content is great.
oh, thank you so much. And folks listening, thank you for listening as always. And we will be talking to you soon. Have a great day.